"Jaren, what are you doing in there?" Elia called out, her voice laced with confusion as she stepped closer to the bathroom door. What she saw made her freeze. Her husband stood over the toilet bowl with a brown folder in his hand. Her folder. The one containing her original documents for her long-awaited job interview. Her heart skipped. "Jaren! What the hell are you doing?" she shouted, rushing forward. But before she could reach him, he dropped the last set of papers into the toilet and slammed the handle. The water swirled violently, dragging her hopes with it, page by page. Elia stared at the bowl, then at Jaren. Her throat tightened. "Are you insane?" she screamed, her voice trembling. "Why would you do that?" Jaren didn't flinch. His arms crossed, jaw tight, voice cold. "You're not going to that interview." Elia's mouth fell open. "What are you talking about? You destroyed my documents." "I did," he said without blinking. "I'm tired of hearing about your career, your future. It's like you don't even need me anymore." Elia's chest heaved. "I worked 5 years for this. You know how many nights I stayed up building my portfolio while you slept?" His voice rose. "And now you got one fancy offer from some big company, and suddenly you act like you run the house. So you flushed my dream because you're insecure?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Because you're scared I'll shine too bright." He didn't deny it. "I'm the man of this house. I have to stay in control." Elia stepped back, tears welling. "You don't want a partner, Jaren. You want a puppet." "I want a wife who knows her place," he snapped. She stared at him in silence, already knowing something inside her had just changed forever. Elia didn't say another word. She walked away, fists clenched, heart pounding. Jaren remained in the bathroom, staring into the water like it had answers. That night, Elia locked herself in the guest bedroom. She didn't cry where he could hear her, but her pillows soaked with silent tears told the truth. The next morning, she didn't prepare his lunch. She didn't make coffee. She moved like a ghost in her own home, each step heavier than the last. By Tuesday morning, the day of her final interview, she sat on the edge of the bed, dressed but empty. The call with Morgan and Wycott Corporation had been short. "We require physical documents," the HR woman had said, politely but firmly. "We wish you all the best in your future endeavors." Elia had whispered the words again, mocking them. Then she stared out the window. The sun was shining bright and harsh like a cruel joke. But as she sat there in silence, a flicker of something else stirred. Determination. She pulled her laptop onto her lap and opened a forgotten folder titled Ideas. Inside were scattered business plans, unused budgets, and logo sketches. One caught her eye, Glow Nest. She had named it years ago when she began mixing natural oils for her own hair in their tiny kitchen. At the time, Jaren had laughed. "Nobody's buying homemade goop," he had said. But now she had nothing left to lose. She clicked open the document and smiled weakly. She opened another browser tab and searched for cosmetic suppliers. By evening, she'd contacted 5 vendors and placed a small order using the money from her secret savings. Cash Jaren never knew existed. That night, she stayed up sketching labels and packaging ideas in her notebook. It wasn't a full plan, but it was something. For the first time in days, Elia felt like she could breathe again. 3 weeks later, boxes arrived at her door. Elia cleared off the dining table and turned it into her personal lab. Every product was handmade. She filled bottles by hand, designed her own labels, and tested each formula on herself. Her phone became her camera. She recorded tutorials in the bathroom mirror, twisting curls, applying her edge balm, showing real results. She posted them with short captions like, "Glow Nest, for crowns that shine from the inside out." The first week was quiet. Few likes. One order from her cousin. No big deal. But then everything changed. One Thursday evening, she posted a dramatic before and after video with music and a confident voiceover. "They said I couldn't, so I did." By Saturday morning, the video had over 200,000 views. Orders flooded in. Elia barely slept that weekend. She was up packing bottles, printing labels, running to the post office for boxes. The house was filled with the scent of shea butter and peppermint oil. She turned the bedroom into a warehouse. Her phone buzzed constantly. New orders, inquiries, collaboration requests from influencers. Jaron noticed. He walked through the chaos like a ghost, frowning but saying little. One night he muttered, "She making all this noise." But Elia didn't respond. She was too busy building her dream. Every bottle sealed was a small act of revenge. Every order a quiet triumph. Glow Nest wasn't just a name now. It was a mission. She was building something from the ashes he tried to burn. And she was doing it without him. By the third month, Elia had outgrown her home setup. She rented a small storefront on Heldon Street. Nothing fancy but bright and welcoming. Soft gold walls, shelves full of her products, mirrors, and a photo booth for selfies. She hired 3 women. Gina, a quiet single mom with steady hands. Bree, a lively college student with dreams of her own salon. And Miss Aura, a retired stylist who brought stories and customers every time she clocked in. Elia trained them personally. She paid them fairly. She created something she was proud of. Glow Nest became a name in the community. Customers posted glow-up videos and tagged her online. She smiled more, walked taller. But back home Jaron was quiet. Too quiet. He no longer came into her room. He no longer touched her. And Elia no longer cared. Late one night, while sealing her last delivery boxes, Elia's phone rang. It was Gina. "Miss Elia, sorry to bother you," she said softly. "Is Jaron still working at city planning?" Elia frowned. "Yes, why?" Gina hesitated. "I saw him at that gas station on Mellow Avenue. He was arguing with the clerk about a declined card. He looked rough." Elia's chest tightened. She hadn't noticed he'd stopped wearing his work badge or his ironed shirts. When she got home, she found him sitting on the bed, hands over his face. "I lost my job," he said when she entered. She stood still. 3 weeks ago. "Liv, I didn't want to tell you." Her voice stayed calm. "Why not?" "Because the woman I tried to silence is now everywhere. On billboards. In interviews. And I'm just here." She looked him over. "So what are you going to do now?" Jaron wiped his face. "I'll do anything. I just need work." Elia tilted her head. "I need a delivery driver." His eyes widened. "You serious?" "Yes," she said. "But let me be clear. This is a job. You will clock in, follow instructions, and act professionally. At work you're not my husband. You're my employee." He nodded slowly. "I understand." "Good," she said. "Be ready at 7 a.m. sharp." The next morning, he wore a black polo and khaki pants, trying to look presentable. Elia didn't smile. She handed him a clipboard and the van keys. "Deliver these. Log every drop. Be on time." He nodded and walked out, humbled and silent. Weeks passed. Jaron drove across the city. Salons, beauty shops, residential homes. He carried boxes of the brand he once mocked, dropping off bottles of product he had tried to destroy. The irony was sharp. Customers raved about Glow Nest, unaware of the driver's story. One day, while waiting outside the store, he overheard 2 women chatting. "Have you met the owner?" one asked. "Elia. She's a beast. Built all this after her husband tried to drag her down. Can you believe?" "Child, men hate when a woman shines brighter than them." Jaron looked away, swallowing hard. That lump in his throat. It was shame. Thick and bitter. That night, he sat alone in the kitchen, eating leftover rice from a takeout container. Elia came in, radiant in her heels, her glow undeniable. She opened the fridge, grabbed water and turned to leave. "You're doing good," Jaron said quietly. She looked at him without emotion. "I know. Better than me now," he added with a forced chuckle. Elia stared. "You flushed my future because you couldn't handle mine shining. And now you carry the dream you tried to kill." She walked out, Jaren didn't reply. He had no defense. Elia no longer saw him as a husband, just a man who once held her back. The days moved on like clockwork. Jaren reported to the store each morning, signed his name on the log sheet, and took the van without saying more than 3 words. He was quiet, efficient, but never happy. Elia ran Glow Nest like a captain at sea, focused, firm, and shining. Customers recognized her in grocery stores, in malls, even at stoplights. Some asked for selfies. Others shared how her products changed their lives. She smiled, offered encouragement, and moved on. Jaren would sometimes watch from a distance, his face a mix of awe and regret. Once the pride of their house, he now stood in the shadows of her empire. One evening over dinner, they sat in silence. Elia pushed a piece of roasted yam across her plate. Jaren cleared his throat. "Do you ever think about how it used to be?" She didn't look up. "Used to be when? Before all this. When we were okay." She slowly raised her eyes. "Things didn't just change. You changed them. You took something from me that I'll never get back." He leaned forward, voice lower. "I was scared. I felt like I was losing my place. Like once you got ahead, I'd be nothing to you." Elia's expression didn't soften. "And now that you're delivering boxes for the woman you tried to crush, do you feel like you matter more?" Jaren looked down. No answer. Only silence. Elia stood and gathered her plate. "I've been patient, civil. I let you work here because I know what it means to fall. But I can't keep pretending this marriage is alive when it's not." Jaren's voice cracked. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying it's over." His eyes widened. "Elia, wait. We can fix this." "No, we can't," she said calmly. "I rebuilt my life. You stood by and watched. That's not partnership. That's dead weight." "I changed," he whispered. "You didn't change," she replied, walking out. "You just lost." The next morning, Elia met with her lawyer and filed for divorce. She didn't hesitate. 2 weeks later, Jaren came home to find the papers on the dining table. She had already signed. He read them word by word, his shoulders slumping. That night, he packed a single bag and left. He stayed at a cheap motel on the east side, the kind where the paint peeled and the beds creaked. The van keys were returned the following day. Elia hired someone new. Marcus, a young man with sharp energy and a constant grin who called her boss lady with pride. Elia poured herself into her business. She opened a second branch on the south side of town. She was interviewed on a popular podcast that racked up over 500,000 plays. A brand consultant reached out. She spoke at a women's conference and left the crowd cheering. She bought herself a new car, sleek, black, with cream leather seats. One sunny morning, she stepped into her store in a white pantsuit and sunglasses. Tasha, her assistant, ran toward her grinning. "Boss lady, you're the woman of the month in She Rises Weekly." Elia laughed. "Look at God." But beneath her success, a quiet ache remained. Not from the divorce, but from the years she'd allowed herself to shrink for love. She hadn't risen in spite of the betrayal. She'd risen because of it. Summer melted into fall, and with it, any remnants of her marriage. Glow Nest now had 3 locations and a team of 20. Elia hosted monthly workshops for young women, teaching them how to build something out of nothing. She mentored girls who'd been told no too many times. Her apartment downtown was cozy, full of warm light, greenery, and peace. Her laughter came easier now. One afternoon after a mall pop-up, Elia stopped at a cafe for a smoothie. Her phone buzzed. It was Tasha. "You're not gonna believe this. Guess who just dropped off an order at our wholesaler?" Elia sipped her drink and texted back. "Let me guess. Jaren." "Girl, yes. He's driving for quick cab now." Looked rough. Elia read the message twice, set her phone down, and gazed out the window. She didn't feel anger, just a still kind of knowing. The kind that only comes after fire no longer burns you. That weekend, Elia gave a talk at a local college. Afterward, A young woman approached her with shining eyes. "Thank you," she said. "I used to think being ambitious made me unlovable. But after your story I started writing again. I even sold my first handmade journal last week." Elia hugged her. "Never dim your light for anyone. Not even someone you love." The girl nodded, tears in her eyes. Later that week, Elia's car went in for servicing. She ordered a ride from the app. 5 minutes later, a dusty blue sedan pulled up. The window rolled down. It was Jaren. Their eyes met. He looked tired. Older. Smaller. "Elia," he said, almost like a prayer. "Jaren," she replied, neutral. She got into the back seat. They rode in silence. Through the rear-view mirror, he glanced at her. "I see your billboards now. You really did it." She kept her eyes out the window. "I was always going to do it." He nodded slowly. "I was a fool." Her voice was soft but steady. "Yes, you were." The car slowed in front of her apartment. She paid through the app. As she stepped out, she turned. "Take care of yourself." He didn't answer. Inside her apartment, Elia removed her heels, poured a glass of wine, and walked out to the balcony. The city lights blinked below like applause from the universe itself. She thought of the toilet water, the shredded documents, the tears, the first label she ever designed by hand. She thought of all the times she nearly gave up. Then she smiled. She raised her glass into the night. "You tried to bury me," she whispered. "But you forgot I was a seed." And with that, she turned toward the warmth of her home, her business, her future. She had bloomed on her own terms.